Hey guys, it's Alex with Hammond Watch. You're like me, you watch a pretty wide range of watch content. You know, I can watch and enjoy a video breaking down the latest Lange or Moser on Watchbox or on Watchfinder and enjoy it about the same as seeing the newest Chinese special that Jody likes on Just One More Watch. If you guys aren't familiar with those channels, I'll put links down below, all really good and informative. Have a look. But when I was doing my video on the escapement time Flieger and how it was really the best affordable Flieger watch, I wanted to look around and see, you know, what other options were out there sub $100 that really packed in a ton of value. And the channel for that's always been Just One More Watch. Jody had a video breaking down this Pagani 1645 Datejust. Said it was his favorite Pagani watch and maybe his favorite AliExpress. Not to put words in his mouth, I don't exactly recall. But at only $75, I really wanted to try it out and have a look and see if it was actually good or if it was a piece of junk. And I must say, you know, he handles a lot of affordable watches, so I trusted his opinion, and it really paid off. You know, this watch really is a dynamite package. And all things considered, I think when you're looking at an homage style watch, I think the Datejust is the easiest one to get away with without being too offensive. Now the sizing on this is pretty cool. It's nice and chunky. You have a 41 millimeter case. The thickness I measure right around 11.7 millimeters. And you have this really nice signed crown, 6.5 millimeters. And I think the most impressive part is that it is screw down. So only 100 meters of water resistance. They didn't go crazy, but at the same time, just like the real Datejust, you get that little bit of added security. The lug to lug, when I go tip to tip here, you're right around 50 millimeters, but the bracelet sticks out quite a bit, and your effective lug to lug all the way out at the end link is really closer to 54 millimeters, which is pretty big. I wouldn't suggest this for a small-wristed guy, or if you're ever concerned that a watch may be too big and you really like to wear more petite styling, this isn't going to be for you. This is more on par with the 41 millimeter Datejust, so it's going to have a lot of wrist presence. It's got a very nice traditional 20 millimeter lug width, so you don't have to worry about strap changes. But the strap, it's a bit of a divisive one. I feel so mixed on it. So first of all, it looks fantastic. Really nice Jubilee. It tapers down to just below 16 millimeters and then back up to 17.5 for the clasp. You have screw links, which made sizing it really enjoyable. You know, a lot of times with more affordable watches, sizing them really becomes a pain, and this alleviates that entirely. You have a fold-over clasp, and it's got the lift lock, just like a Rolex would. It doesn't function incredibly well, but it certainly does the job and offers that same feel. You've got nice milled out hardware, and then they do have the Easy Link adjustment as well, where you can add, you know, 5 to 7 millimeters of extra length should you be, you know, out in the sun or having a few drinks and feeling a little bit swollen that day. It feels nice. You know, some of the articulation isn't quite there. You know, it doesn't fold like a Rolex bracelet would, and it binds a little bit at the top. But all things considered, I mean, and not being too picky, it's really the nicest bracelet on a sub $100 watch I've ever seen. My only real complaint, and I can get past the binding, it just feels a little bit sharp. Like it's not going to cut you, it's not going to hurt. But when you hold like a nicer watch in your hand, there's a softness to a lot of the edges. This has just a little bit of a sharp feel kind of everywhere. On wrist, it's fine. You know, I think it's rather comfortable, but just something to note. You know, at the end of the day, even though this is incredibly well executed, I'm probably going to end up just throwing it on a strap like anything else. Of course, though, on a bracelet that feature rich, you're going to have solid end links. Some of the finish work is a little bit sharp and awkward, but at the same time, you're getting so much for so little. You kind of have to be a little bit forgiving. Your screw down case back has a little bit of branding and some basic specifications, including referencing that water resistance from, again, the two screw down components. You also have this display case back where you can see the heart of the watch, which is the Seiko NH35A. It's a hacking and hand winding movement, time and date, and it operates at tolerances of -20 to +30, although this one's running at about +7. Behind the watch's sapphire crystal is its most impressive feature. The execution on this dial is pretty astonishing. You know, I've seen sloppier indexes on $500 Swiss watches. Everything looks very clean, very as it should be. I don't like the Pagani design logo, but all of the printing on it and even the minute track around the dial, it all just looks crisp. It looks correct. The handset also pretty well finished. You may have a little rough patch on the side of that minutes hand, but we're in pretty close. And even then, it's not a blatant blemish. It's just really surprised me how good of a job they did. And the sapphire crystal they use actually has a pretty nice cyclops. You know, a lot of Rolex homages missed the mark right here, and it's kind of that first big dead giveaway. And not that it's not a Rolex, but just that it's of a much lower quality. This watch does have a little bit of that premium feel when it comes to the dial and crystal. So the Lume application is a mixed bag. The initial glow is strong, and I think the indices are pretty well executed. The hands just don't have a lot of space for luminescent material, and not being the strongest, they fade away and disappear pretty quick, and then the rest of the dial isn't too far behind. Now, all things considered, especially the price, I think it's absolutely passable, especially since it's not trying to be a dive watch, but it is just a little bit disappointing. So here we are on my 7.5 to 7 3/4 inch wrist. And you can see the watch has a pretty substantial presence, but at the same time, it's not overpowering by any means. A lot of that sharpness to the bracelet, you don't really feel it on wrist. It's more in handling as it's kind of these leading edges. On wrist, it feels nice and kind of silky smooth. The binding doesn't really affect my wrist just because of the size. It's not really having to articulate very much up here. And in general, I'm pretty satisfied with how it feels top to bottom. So I know it can be hard to really convey sizing and proportions via video, so I wanted to do a little side-by-side with the SKX here, just so you can see. I mean, it is pretty substantial as far as its width. It's not incredibly tall, but it's not incredibly small either. So just know that when you're getting into the watch, it being as hefty as it is surprised me just a little bit, even though I was expecting it to some degree. You know, after spending a little bit of time with this, I really am surprised that they're able to offer this type of quality for $75. I mean, the dial is incredibly beautiful. The watch overall, I mean, obviously they didn't have to put a ton of time into R&D. But at the same time, I like when those Chinese manufacturers kind of move away from the dive watch market. You know, having the bezel, trying to get the proper lume, you know, that's where a lot of their dollars go. And when you pair those things back and do a Flieger or a pilot watch or a sporty dress watch like this, it really frees you up to do a better job controlling what you can. I mean, this watch didn't have to deal with a rotating bezel. There's no fancy finish work, you know, it's just all polished. So they were really able to make sure that they nailed the dial and hands and put a nice crystal with a good cyclops on it. And I think they put all their money in the right place. I mean, even the bracelet, again, specs-wise, the most impressive I've seen, sub $100, and probably feel-wise too. You know, it's really, really nice. It blows me away, and I think it's a good challenge to companies like Seiko and Orient to step up their game, because the market has changed a little bit, and now watches like this are out there in the open, and they're not secrets. You know, people know about them, and you're able to buy them pretty easily. So I hope that this pushes some of the major manufacturers to kind of step up their game as far as specs is concerned, but only time will tell. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up. It really helps in YouTube's algorithm. Make sure you go check out Just One More Watch. Great channel and absolutely turned me on to this thing. Also, consider subscribing to Hammond Watch. I put content out about twice a week, and I hope to see you in the next one.